Ambassador Holbrooke. It's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is a great honor to appear before you as the first opportunity I've had to testify before Congress since I assumed my new job, but far from the first opportunity I've had to appear before your committee. You were kind enough to invite me here as a private citizen. You are, by my count, the sixth chairman of this committee I've testified before. In fact, it was the first committee I ever testified before in 1977. In those days, the rules were different, and I was asked to testify before I was confirmed, but things have changed. Mr. Chairman, H.R. 1886 is a step forward in concept from previous legislation in previous years. It's focused on the right issues. It puts Pakistan in the right construct. It responds to the importance of the issue as outlined by both you and the ranking member and my friend Congressman Ackerman, who thinks I live in his district because I'm next to it. So it's good to see you, sir. My actual congressman, for the record, is Jerry Nadler, but I'm happy to consider you my second congressman. This is a very important part of our effort to build correct policy. And with your permission, before I turn to the legislation and answer your questions, I would like to outline for you and for anyone who's listening what is going on in the next 3 days here in Washington, because these are historically important meetings, and I think we should put them in the context. The administration began its term in office with the concept we're now all familiar with, that Afghanistan and Pakistan were interrelated in such a way so that success in either one required success in the other. Sounds simple now, but it was not the stovepiped approach that we inherited. And as we proceeded with our strategic review, and as we progressed, things developed. In late February, the Secretary of State invited the foreign ministers of Afghanistan and Pakistan to Washington and asked them to bring delegations with them to begin a trilateral process. That first round of trilateral talks was sufficiently successful so that the President Obama, decided to invite President Zardari of Pakistan and President Karzai of Afghanistan here to continue the talks at the presidential level. This unprecedented trilateral diplomacy, including many senior members of both administrations, begins today. I will go directly from this meeting to meetings with members of the two governments. I already met with President Zardari last night, and I know that you will be meeting with President Zardari later in the day. And I would like to say, in the presence of so many of your colleagues, that that meeting with President Zardari this afternoon is an extremely important part of the formation of a correct American policy towards Afghanistan, and I congratulate you for chairing it. Your colleagues on the other side will have a similar meeting at lunch on Thursday, chaired by Senator Kerry and Senator Lugar. The meetings will begin tomorrow morning, the formal meetings, in the State Department. Secretary Clinton will meet privately with each delegation bilaterally, and then there will be a trilateral session in which we hope to produce some useful agreements of cooperation. We will then move to the White House tomorrow afternoon, where President Obama will follow a similar scenario, meeting first with President Karzai and then with President Zardari in strict protocol sequence, and then a trilateral meeting of the two delegations. This has not been done before. President Bush did have one dinner with the two presidents when it was Musharraf and Karzai, but it resulted in no progress and there was no follow-on. This is part of a continuing process, and we would like your committee and the Congress as a whole to be partners in this very important effort. It's interesting, Mr. Chairman, to discover that the two finance ministers have never met each other till they will meet tomorrow. The two agriculture ministers don't know each other. The two interior ministers do not know each other. And yet, for the United States, our most vital national security interests depend on cooperation between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The animosity and misunderstandings between Afghanistan and Pakistan did not begin after 9/11 or even when the Soviet Union invaded 30 years ago. They go back to the origins of they go back to independence, partition, Pakistani independence. And it is an extraordinarily complicated story. We are involved in it because our most vital national security interests are at stake. I've heard people, including people in this body, compare this to Vietnam. I served 3.5 years in Vietnam as a civilian alongside the United States military in the Mekong Delta and in the American Embassy. And then I served another 4 years on Vietnam as a member of President Johnson's staff and the Paris peace talks. And I wrote 1 volume of the Pentagon Papers. And I want to say to you today and to your colleagues as clearly as I can that while there are obvious structural similarities between the war in Afghanistan and the war in Vietnam, and in both countries the problem of the sanctuary is critical, and the sanctuary area is the area we're here to discuss today, the core difference is that the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese Army never posed a direct threat to the American homeland. And the people who are in this area, who we are fighting, either pose and are planning, pose a direct threat, having committed 9/11, having done Mumbai, having killed Benazir Bhutto, and they have publicly said they're going to do more of the same. That's Al-Qaeda, of course, and its allies, the Taliban. So we need to be very clear that we are talking today about an issue that is of direct importance to our national security. Now, in regard to H.R. 1886, this is a very big improvement on previous legislation. It vastly increases the economic assistance. It segments economic and military. The accountability provisions that you referred to apply, as I understand it, only to the military portion, a point which has been lost in the debate over it. And there are many other things in it that we greatly appreciate. And I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and your colleagues, particularly the ranking minority member, for their bipartisanship in putting this bill together. It is very important, and we hope that it will be passed and that the differences with the House and Senate versions will be reconciled. Having said that, I also wish to echo what Secretary of State Clinton said when she was asked about the accountability, and that is that we should be careful that we look for a sweet spot that is acceptable. Now, let me be clear here. The goals that you lay out in the accountability section are goals that we by and large share. But there has been a misunderstanding in Pakistan about motivation and about how this works. And so we would like to work with you. And I believe in this regard, Mr. Chairman, your meeting this afternoon with President Zardari is very important, arguably more important than this hearing. We would like to work with you and with the Pakistani government to find that sweet spot that Secretary Clinton referred to. In conclusion of my opening remarks, let me ask your permission to submit my formal opening statement for the record and to thank you very much, really deeply and personally, for your leadership in this most important issue. Thank you.